Hi, I'm Natalie Parker, and I thought betrayal came from strangers. I thought it was something that happened in movies or on the news, a dramatic event carried out by people you didn't know. But the day I opened a court notice accusing me of defaulting on a $600,000 mortgage, one I never signed, I learned betrayal wears the face of family. It doesn't scream. It whispers your name on a legal document and leaves you to clean up the wreckage. Before we dive in, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below telling me, where in the world are you watching from? I love seeing how far this story travels. It started on a Tuesday, a completely ordinary day. The sky was gray, threatening rain, and I was just trying to get the mail before it started. I remember the feel of the cold metal mailbox on my fingertips. Inside, among the usual junk mail and a postcard from a friend, was a thick, heavy envelope. It had no return address, just a formal stamp and my name and address printed in a severe official-looking font. It felt important. It felt heavy with bad news. I took it inside, setting it on my small kitchen counter. For a moment, I just stared at it. Part of me wanted to throw it away, to pretend I never saw it. But curiosity, or maybe dread, won out. I tore it open. The words inside were dense and full of legal terms I didn't understand, but certain phrases jumped out at me, bold and terrifying. Notice of foreclosure proceedings. Failure to meet payment obligations. And then, the number. $600,000. My mind couldn't process it. It was a mistake. It had to be a mistake. I lived in a small, rented apartment. I drove a 10-year-old car. The most significant loan I'd ever taken out was for my community college, tuition, and I'd paid that off 2 years ago. Then I saw my name, Natalie Parker, listed as the primary borrower. My knees went weak. I had to grab the edge of the counter to keep from falling. My breath came in short, sharp gasps. My world, which had been so simple and stable just a minute ago, suddenly felt like it was tilting on its axis. $600,000. The number echoed in the silent apartment, a monstrous figure that had nothing to do with me. Yet there it was, tied to my name. It was like being accused of a crime you didn't even know existed. The next morning, I was at the bank before the doors, even opened. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my coffee. The notice was crumpled in my purse, a piece of paper that felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I walked up to the first available teller and tried to keep my voice steady. I need to speak to someone about a loan, I said. A loan I never applied for. I was led to a small glass-walled office. A loan officer named Mr. Henderson, a man with a kind but professional face, listened patiently as I explained the situation. I handed him the notice. He typed my name into his computer, his brow furrowing as he read the screen. "Yes, Ms. Parker. The mortgage is right here," he said, turning the monitor toward me. "It was approved 6 months ago." "That's impossible," I said, my voice rising. "I haven't applied for any loans. I haven't even been in this bank in over a year." He clicked a few more times and pulled up a file. He slid a stack of papers across the desk. "This is the application package," he said gently. "The signature is on the final page." I looked down at the document. There was all my information, my full name, my address, my date of birth, and my social security number. Everything was correct. And at the bottom, in neat cursive, was a signature. Natalie Parker. It looked like my signature. It looked so much like mine, but it wasn't. There was something slightly off about the loop of the N, the way the R connected to the K. It was a careful, deliberate copy, but it felt dead on the page. It wasn't mine. "That's not my handwriting," I whispered, tracing the forged name with my finger. "Someone faked this." Mr. Henderson gave me a sympathetic look, the kind people give you when they think you're either lying or crazy. "Ms. Parker, all the information was verified. From our perspective, this is a legally binding document. The payments have been missed for 3 consecutive months. The bank has to initiate foreclosure proceedings." I left the bank feeling numb. The world outside seemed too bright, too loud. It felt like I was walking through a nightmare. That evening, the phone calls started. Debt collectors. Their voices were harsh, demanding. And they didn't care that I was confused and scared. To them, I wasn't a person. I was a name on a list, a debtor who owed them money. They threatened to garnish my wages, to seize my assets. What assets? I wanted to scream. My used car? My small savings account that I had worked so hard to build? I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. My life became a cycle of fear and confusion. Who would do this? Who could have gotten all my information? The questions circled in my mind. A vulture, waiting to land on a truth I wasn't ready to face. The answer began to dawn on me slowly, a cold, sickening light spreading through the darkness. The property address on the foreclosure notice. It sounded vaguely familiar. I typed it into a search engine. The images that popped up were of a new, modern-looking house in a suburb I'd never been to. An investment property. The phrase hit me like a physical blow. My father. A few months ago, at a family dinner, he had been bragging about his new real estate venture. A smart investment, he'd called it. A way to secure the family's future. He had a way of saying, the family, that really just meant him and my mother and maybe my sister Claire. I was always an afterthought. I didn't want to believe it. It couldn't be him. A father wouldn't do that to his daughter. It had to be a coincidence. But the knot in my stomach told me otherwise. I needed proof. I called the bank back, and after hours of being transferred and put on hold, I managed to get a full digital copy of the loan application emailed to me. I opened the file with trembling hands. I scrolled through the pages, my eyes scanning the fine print, and then I saw it. A supporting document, a pay stub, listed my old part-time job from college, a job my dad had helped me get. He knew where I worked. He knew my social security number. It was on the financial aid forms he'd filled out for me years ago. He had everything he needed. He had the keys to my entire life, and he had used them to lock me in a cage of debt. The ECR betrayal was so absolute, so profound, it felt like it stopped my heart. This wasn't a stranger. This was my dad. The man who was supposed to protect me had just thrown me to the wolves to save himself. I drove to my parents' house in a blind rage. The anger was a hot, solid thing in my chest, the only thing holding me together. I didn't knock. I used my old key and walked right in. My mother and father were in the living room watching television. They looked up, surprised to see me. "Natalie, what a surprise," my mother started to say, but I cut her off. I threw the printed loan application on the coffee table in front of them. It landed with a soft thud that echoed in the silent room. "What is this?" I asked, my voice shaking with a fury I had never felt before. My father picked it up. He glanced at it, his expression unreadable. Then he looked at me, and he didn't even have the decency to look guilty. He just looked annoyed, like I was an inconvenience. "Oh, that," he said, shrugging. He actually shrugged. "It was just paperwork, Natalie. I needed a co-signer with a clean credit history to get the loan approved. Your name was a formality." "A formality?" I choked out the words. "You forged my signature on a $600,000 mortgage. I'm facing foreclosure. Debt collectors are calling me every hour. This is destroying my life. Don't be so dramatic," he said, his voice cold. "It's just money. You're young. You have your whole life ahead of you. You'll bounce back. We needed this." I turned to my mother, my last hope. She was staring at her hands, folded in her lap. She wouldn't look at me. "Mom?" I pleaded. "Did you know about this?" She finally lifted her head, and her eyes were filled with a weak, tired apology that did nothing to soothe the gaping wound in my chest. "Your father, he did it for the family, honey. He's under a lot of pressure." "I'm family," I shouted, the words tearing from my throat. What about me? The confrontation I had imagined, the one where they would break down and apologize, never happened. There was no remorse. There was only justification. They had chosen him, chosen their own comfort over me. I was just a tool they had used and were now ready to discard. The final blow came a few days later. My sister Claire called me. I thought, naively, that she would be on my side. She was always the favorite, but we were still sisters. "I can't believe you're doing this to Dad," she said, her voice sharp and accusatory. "You're being so selfish. Mom told me you're thinking of going to the police or something. Are you trying to ruin this family over some paperwork? Some paperwork? I repeated, numb. Claire, he committed a felony. He put me in hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt without my knowledge. He ruined my credit, maybe for the rest of my life. So what? She shot back. Dad needed the help. Family is supposed to help each other. But you've always had to be so independent, so difficult. For once, can't you just do what's best for everyone else? I hung up the phone. The silence in my apartment was deafening. My entire family, my father, my mother, my sister, they had all looked at my life and decided it was an acceptable sacrifice for their own gain. I was completely, utterly alone. The weight of their betrayal was crushing me, and for a long time I just sat there in the dark and cried. I cried for the father I thought I had, for the family I thought loved me. I cried until I had no tears left. And then, something shifted. In the quiet emptiness of my apartment, a new feeling began to grow. It was small at first, a tiny spark. In the ashes of my grief, it was resolve. They expected me to break. They expected me to roll over and accept the debt, to quietly fade away and let them live their lives. They had counted on my silence. They thought that because I was their daughter, their sister, that I would just absorb the damage. That night I didn't sleep, but I wasn't panicking anymore. I pulled out my laptop, the screen a bright square of light in the darkness. I started a new folder on my desktop and named it Evidence. I saved a copy of the loan application. I downloaded my bank statements, showing that not a single dollar from that mortgage had ever entered my accounts. I found old birthday cards and letters from my father and scanned them, creating a file of his real signature. I took screenshots of the harassing calls from debt collectors. I gathered every shred of proof, every piece of the puzzle, and organized it with a cold, clear focus. The next morning, I started searching for lawyers. I didn't look for a family lawyer. I looked for one who specialized in financial fraud. Found a woman named Maria Sanchez. Her website was straightforward, her testimonials glowing. I called her office, my heart pounding, and explained my situation in a low, steady voice. They wanted me silent, I told her, the words feeling powerful as I spoke them aloud. I'm ready to let the law speak for me. The legal battle was long and draining. It was months of paperwork, meetings, and fear. My father hired a team of expensive lawyers who tried every trick in the book. They tried to paint me as a liar, as a bitter daughter who had agreed to the loan and then changed her mind. They suggested I was mentally unstable. They brought up every mistake I'd ever made, twisting my past into a weapon to use against me. My family was there in the courtroom sitting behind my father. They stared at me with cold, unforgiving eyes. They were a united front, and I was on the other side, the enemy. There were days I wanted to give up. The stress was immense, and the pain of seeing my family look at me with such hatred was almost unbearable. But then I would look at my lawyer, Maria, who stood by me with unwavering strength, and I would remember why I was doing this. This wasn't just about the money. It was about my name, my identity, my future. He had tried to steal it, and I was going to take it back. The turning point came when the handwriting experts took the stand. Maria had hired the best in the field. One by one, they presented their findings on large screens for the whole court to see. They showed my real signature next to the forged one. They pointed out the subtle differences in pressure, the hesitation in the strokes, the microscopic signs of a signature that was drawn, not written. The forgery, they concluded, was undeniable. My father's face was pale. His lawyers whispered furiously to him. In that moment, I could see the cracks in his arrogant facade. He had been so sure he could control this, that he could bully his way out of it just like he had bullied me my whole life. But in a courtroom, his power meant nothing. The only thing that mattered was the truth. Finally, it was the judge's turn to speak. He looked down from his bench, his eyes fixed on my father. "You seem to believe," the judge said, his voice ringing with authority, "that family is a license to commit fraud, that love is an excuse for theft. You are mistaken." He ruled, completely in my favor. The court declared that I had no liability for the $600,000 mortgage. My name was to be cleared from all associated debts. And then, he delivered the final, devastating blow. He was referring the case to the district attorney's office to open a criminal fraud investigation against my father. The courtroom went silent. The sound of the judge's gavel hitting the wood was like a gunshot. It was over. I had won. But I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt a profound sense of relief, like a weight I had been carrying for my entire life had finally been lifted. The bank, now armed with a court order, moved quickly. They seized my father's assets to cover the defaulted loan, including the precious investment property he had sacrificed me for. His carefully constructed world began to crumble. Relatives who had once called me selfish and dramatic now called me to whisper about his disgrace, about the whispers of criminal charges. I didn't take their calls. Their opinions were meaningless to me now. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I simply walked out of the courthouse, stood on the steps, and took a deep breath of clean, free air. My shoulders, which had been hunched with stress for so long, finally straightened. Back in my apartment, I found a simple, elegant frame. I printed a copy of the court dismissal letter, the one that officially gave me my name back. I framed it and hung it on my wall. It wasn't a trophy of victory over my family. It was a reminder of what I had survived, a reminder that my voice mattered, even if it was quiet. Looking at it now, I feel a sense of peace. They tried to bury me under a mountain of debt and lies. They tried to make me invisible, disposable, but they underestimated me. They stole my signature, but they couldn't steal my voice. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted most, share your story in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share because justice deserves to be heard.